This presentation examines capital funding options for PK-12 school districts, colleges, and many businesses. In this presentation, you will discover the various local, state, and federal avenues for financing capital investments. When financing traditional public school capital expenditures throughout the United States, local funding bears the heaviest burden because communities, on average, pay 82% of all capital projects. Nationally, over the past 2 decades, states have delivered 7.8% of elementary and secondary public schools facilities capital investment funds. Due to the federal government's position that school funding is a state responsibility, federal sources fund a mere 0.2% of the traditional public schools' capital needs. Look at your state to see the local and state support for public school districts' capital investments. If your state is not listed, that state does not provide any support for capital investments. By applying judicious budgeting and conservative purchasing practices, districts may accumulate revenue from unrestricted local and state sources for capital outlay. School officials may transfer general fund dollars into a capital project fund for the express purpose of financing infrastructure expenses. By using capital surpluses, this pay-as-you-go plan spreads expenditures over a period of time, implements simple procedures for funding ventures, and avoids interest on debt. With cash in reserve, administrators may become more cost-conscious, even though saving dollars for later endeavors may pit one spending priority over another. Typically, very affluent or large districts are the most capable of implementing pay-as-you-go infrastructure initiatives because low wealth and small districts generally struggle to pay essential budgetary obligations. In general, using cash deposits remain a frequent payment plan for less expensive capital outlay expenditures. Similar to the pay-as-you-go plan, district officials may choose to establish a capital project sinking fund. When forming a sinking fund, the district banks excess cash until the account is ample to pay for a capital project. After amassing sufficient money, school officials may spend sinking funds immediately without a voter-approved referendum. This payment mechanism also avoids interest charges on debt service. In Ohio and many other states, permanent improvement levies may fund fixed assets with a lifespan of 5 or more years, and the proceeds inaugurate a capital project fund. With voter approval, this type of referendum allows a district to levy a property tax millage for a set time, not to exceed 10 mills, for the sole purpose of financing specified or unspecified capital endeavors. Issuing bonds is the most common local practice to meet major infrastructure needs. School bond elections request voters to approve increased property tax for the following reasons: build new schools or modernize and renovate facilities, issue government-backed general obligation bonds, or exceed the school debt beyond the legally protected limit. Public school district bond election prerequisites vary according to state election law, particularly legislating procedures to qualify initiatives, establish election dates, determine district balloting costs, set passage rates with a simple majority or supermajority, and schedule bond repayments. In order to fund bonds and acquire capital debt, as you see in this table, election law in 28 states compels independent school districts to place a bond referendum before the residential electorate. 3 states mandate a petition and remonstrance process to pass a bond issue. For dependent school districts in Maryland, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, the parent company must pass a bond referendum. Georgia mandates a countywide referendum to pass an initial local sales tax to secure bonds. 9 states authorize a jurisdiction other than the school district to approve bond issuance. Local property tax supports bond debt in 42 states. 7 states authorize bond debt backed by property tax and/or a sales tax surcharge approved by the county voters. 6 states permit another distinctive tax to support bonds in addition to property or local sales surtax. 17 states have debt limits for bond elections to control revenue increases. Therefore, when a school district wants to exceed the limit, election law orders a referendum. What are the specific bond requirements in your state? After a successful bond election, the district arranges bonding and local term borrowing. Because construction costs are expensive, most school districts prefer securing long-term debt through a bond sale because bond repayments normally extend 20 years or more. To begin the bonding process, the school board selects a bond counsel, a specialized attorney or law firm, to advise the district in advertising, issuing, selling, delivering, and certifying the bonds. Before advertising a competitive bid for a bond sale, the bond counsel gathers recent district financial audit data and acquires a district credit rating from an agency. After certifying the bond rate and writing the prospectus, the bond counsel prepares and initiates the competitive bid process for the bond sale to underwriters. Competitive bids declare interest rates and maturity dates in proposals. Bond counsel and district officials open and award the bond bids. Following the board's bid awards, bond counsel has serial bonds printed with differing maturity dates to provide a consistent stream for bond repayment. The state usually verifies the bonds. The district's accumulated principal and interest represent the debt owed to bond holders. The funds may become immediately accessible for district investment upon bond sale. The majority of capital funding generates from local bonds. On occasion, a district may apply for state funds. The state budget, they will budget these funds via a capital budget for state prisons, higher education institutions, primary and secondary public schools, water and sewage treatment plants, parks, hospitals, and other state facilities. Akin to the state operating budget, 26 states and the District of Columbia enact an annual capital budget. Massachusetts does not mandate an annual capital budget, although legislators review and budget a yearly capital investment plan. 21 states ratify a biennial capital budget, and 3 states concurrently legislate an annual and biennial capital budget. Look at this map to see how your state budgets capital investments. State funding for capital projects derives from varying state sources, with states occasionally employing a number of alternatives, such as general obligation or revenue bonds, general fund appropriations, lottery proceeds, state sales tax revenue, and/or designated sources like tax on cigarettes, wholesale marijuana, utility and communications, coal and timber, severance, individual and corporate income, and real estate transfer. Look at the table to see your state's capital funding sources. After passing a bond referendum and issuing bonds, a district may attempt to secure state construction or renovation funds when available. A number of states, like Ohio, oblige districts to pass a local bond referendum before granting state aid for school construction. This slide shows how the state of Washington utilizes the capital budget. States authorize funding oversight responsibility to public agencies, quasi-public corporations, or boards assigned by the state. These organizations administer state funding, approve master facility plans, sanction construction, and offer technical advice on building standards. For instance, the Department of Education is the sole source in New York. An independent organization, the Facilities Construction Commission, oversees all state construction projects, including schools in Ohio. Massachusetts has an advisory committee. 18 states involve more than one agency in assigning state funds and guiding the construction process. For example, specific staff members at the California Department of Education guide facility planning and approve state assistance in conjunction with the State Allocation Board. Assigned employees at the Public School Construction Office implement the school facility program. Verify that applicant school districts meet the requirement for requested funding and disperse the funds. Representatives at the Division of the State Architect Office review construction plans and facilitate building code compliance. Programs fundable by statute are the predominant distribution method for states to allocate monies for new construction or major renovation. To distribute these funds to districts, states utilize equalized or unequalized project applications, debt service, loans, state bond guarantee programs, or categorical aid in conjunction with the state's basic aid program. 15 states distribute state construction aid by application that weighs equalizing factors among requests, such as a district's property wealth. The state allocation typically is inversely proportionate to a state's per pupil property evaluation. Thereby, low wealth districts obtain funding before high wealth districts. 15 states approve state subsidies based on project-based application without regard to a district's wealth. Project-based programs resemble a flat grant, although the state's support rarely funds the full cost to construct a new building or renovate an existing structure. 8 states and the District of Columbia qualify construction, renovation, and building maintenance as a part of the district's total educational program. These states and the District of Columbia distribute categorical aid with or without equalization principles. 5 states allocate capital funds through debt service programs. 4 states deliver school construction support by a loan program, and 4 states deliver funds through a state bond guarantee program. Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Wisconsin do not grant capital funding to school districts. Besides construction, renovation, and debt service funding programs, states also finance targeted, competitive, or entitlement grants for capital outlay. Most states commonly apportion school safety, security, and technology capital investment funds through specific one-time or recurrent grants. Non-public schools have limited access to state and federal funds. Therefore, personal cash donations, as well as corporation, foundation, and philanthropic grants become necessary. Thus, school officials must investigate a variety of avenues to fund capital expenditures. Estate commitments and planned gifts impact capital funding for schools because these types of gifts account for a large number of major capital campaign dollars. A successful campaign for the public, non-public, and charter schools consists of 2 phases, quiet and public. To review the phases, go to a website called Grant Space, which is listed here. Public charter schools mainly rely on state and federal funding to finance facility renovation and construction projects. States offer financial facility assistance to public charter schools in various ways, including dedicated basic aid allocations, revenue bond programs, grants, public loans, and credit enhancement programs. One distinct federal program that grants financial facility assistance to public charter schools is the State Charter School Facilities Initiative Grant Program. This program specifically stipulates competitive grants for states to establish or administer aid for charter school facilities. Federal funds from this grant match non-federal funds dedicated to charter schools. Another federal charter school facility program designed to improve a charter school's credit standing is the Credit Enhancement for Charter Schools Facilities program. This program reduces the financial risk to creditors for private loans and revenue bonds to participating charter schools. This concludes the presentation on capital funding options. If you have a question, please email me. Thank you very much.